Thanks for staying here on News Desk. The University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, is demanding the immediate resignation of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Education, Winneba, Reverend Father Professor Anthony Afful-Broni. As it lists a litany of allegations against him, UTAG accuses him of orchestrating the removal of his predecessor, Professor Mauto Avoke, and the subsequent sacking of some teaching and non-teaching staff of the university. Meanwhile, UTAG also wants the council chairman, Professor Abaka, investigated over accusations of conflict of interest. It's been almost 2 weeks since the University of Education's Central Region campuses were closed down upon advice from the Regional Security Council. How did we get here with the situation at UEW? Here's a recap. So that's the story so far. I have been joined in the studio by the National UTAG President, Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah. Great to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
It's been 2 weeks of trying to solve this problem at the University of Education campus. You alleged at your news conference that the current VC leaked documents leading to the dismissal of the former VC. Do you have documents to prove that?
That's correct. And I think that UTAG, in making that statement, directly refers to the allegations that were made by the Honorable Afenyo Makin that, so far as the prosecution of the former Vice Chancellor was concerned, it is the current sitting Vice Chancellor who, under the cover of darkness, took all the documents of the university and gave it to him for him to proceed to court to challenge the position of the Vice Chancellor in court. And therefore, he is culpable. But I think that I would like to take you through what has happened so far. Earlier this month, 3 lecturers were sacked. How did that happen? The administration of UEW, through some lecturers, took UTAG executive to court, contesting their legitimacy. So the National Executive Committee of UTAG went ahead to suspend these executive members who represented at the local level in UEW. So they kept on fighting the case in an appeals court in Cape Coast until the court gave a pronouncement that the executive members could continue to hold themselves as such. So when we got this information, naturally we gave it to our lawyers to look at it, and they said yes. The appeals court in Cape Coast has cleared them. So as national president, I instructed my secretary to write a formal letter of recognition to the management of UEW. We wrote the letter on the 4th, and copies were supposed to be given to our executive and the management of the university. Just the day they received a letter for their reinstatement, the following day, decision was taken to summarily dismiss Dr. Duku and another lecturer, Dr. Sapon.
Yeah, but the university's council gave reasons for their dismissal.
Yes.
They didn't exhaust their teaching hours. You are president of UTAG, and I want to believe that you are a lecturer as well.
I am.
In any case, is that the proper thing to do? Do lecturers need to miss out on their lessons for any reason?
Not at all. Clearly, I think that the basis and the reason they gave for the president of UTAG as not attending lectures is untrue, because there hasn't been any formal query from the head of department. The students have never reported that Dr. Duku absents himself from lectures. The dean has not queried him. There's no proof.
But is there any counter evidence to prove that he was in the lecture hall or theater?
They have the right to prove with an evidence
because
that
they are accused.
Exactly. And normally in the university, if there's a statutory provision that if somebody doesn't attend a lecture, the worst you could do is to say that we're going to punish you and you're going to lose your pay. That doesn't happen. They summarily dismissed him, and the students went on to protest.
The university says that you instigated the students. UTAG is the one that, fueled the whole chaos that we witnessed some 2 weeks ago.
It cannot be true. I'm not a lecturer at UEW. Neither are my executive members. UTAG is a credible...
But you have a representation in the university.
There is no executive, and that's what I'm talking about, that, the whole issue was being contested in court.
But the appeals court gave them the clearance to hold themselves as such.
Exactly.
So could they have been acting in a certain capacity?
No, not at all. And the question was, the several other lecturers had earlier on been sacked, including the former UTAG president. If UTAG executives at the local level wanted to use the students, to protest and cause mayhem, then naturally they would have done it several months earlier. So I think that the students realize that, where it's gotten to, if they don't stand up and challenge what is happening, they are ultimately going to be those going to suffer. But I think that we could come to the substantive issues,
sure,
based upon the press conference we had yesterday.
You're calling for the resignation or dismissal of the Vice Chancellor, Reverend Father Professor Afful-Broni.
Yes, we made that call earlier on in our press conference, and the management of the university came out with a press conference asking that, UTAG should stay away because the current administration and the chair of the council is trying to make sure that discipline exists in the university, so UTAG shouldn't intervene. But it seems that if you look critically at what is happening on UEW campus, that's not the case. The current chairman of council happens to be a former employee of the university. He retired, in 2014. Before his retirement, the rule in the UEW, according to their statute, clearly indicates that if anybody wants to apply for a promotion prior to retirement, you should have a time frame of 12 months. The said Professor Abekan, applied in his 10th month. So the then administration declined in processing the document.
Okay, and this was when Professor Avoke was...
No, when Professor Asabri Ameyao was the Vice Chancellor, and at that time Professor Avoke was the Pro-Vice Chancellor.
Okay.
So this is one of the reasons why UTAG argues that the current chair left the university out of bitterness. So when he had the opportunity to serve as council chair, he now, his promotion which couldn't be considered statute-wise, now touched, manipulated the appointed and promotion procedure of UEW to make sure that persons like him who couldn't, apply for normal consideration of their promotion in active service could be considered even after 5 years of retirement.
But Doc, this has nothing to do with the substantive matter of your members being sacked and dismissed? It has a lot to do
with the substantive issue, because the central argument being posited by UTAG is that the current management of UEW are not following the statutes. They are taking people through the motions and trying to legitimize their illegitimate actions.
Let me cut in here. You said that he found a way of changing the law.
Yes, and I'm going to explain.
Changing the law, which presupposes that a certain process was gone through to change the law. So it didn't go through due process.
Yes, they claim they changed it to make sure that it takes care of persons like him.
Per your knowledge, did it go through due process?
It didn't, and let me explain if you give me a minute. So what they did was that they promoted him, pension as chair, and gave him, backdated it to December 2013, 5 years after his retirement. And when the registrar wrote, recently when the news started going around, wrote to explain the reason for that decision, the registrar, who is a lawyer, said the council sought refuge in a document that is non-existent. That is the, the conditions of service of senior members of public university in Ghana. That document was tabled before Vice Chancellor's Ghana. That document was never considered. It was never given any approval. And therefore, it couldn't be the basis of the consideration of the promotion of Professor Abekan. And now I want all of us to call the chairman of UEW Council to come out publicly, if he's a man of integrity, to come out and explain whether the provision which they use for his promotion is justified under UEW statute.
Okay, but why are you calling for the immediate reinstatement of your members or your colleagues who have been sacked without recourse to any form of investigation? You know, don't you think that will
the point is that
affect, you know, the procedures, the school's rules, and how things are done?
The point is that yesterday during our press conference, we explained case by case the 3 sacked senior members to show how unjustifiable the decision is under the statute, the very statute of UEW. Look, for example, if you take somebody like Dr. Sapon, who represents the alumni on UEW Council. Dr. Sapon was invited before a disciplinary committee, and prior to that, the council took a decision to take a vote. Dr. Sapon, out of his own moral inclination, says, I'm not going to be part of this process, and he decides to recuse himself. That action is being interpreted by council as being disrespectful to the council chair and the other members. He says he didn't. You call him before a disciplinary committee, you invite him with a letter. That letter finds its way on the alumni platform. The accusation is that Dr. Sapon is trying to cause disaffection of management, for the alumni. Now they drag him before the disciplinary committee, ask him to apologize, which he does. 8 months after that, then they give him a dismissal letter. This is not how public universities in Ghana works. We work. They seriously, in fact, if you look at all the public universities, yes, lecturers are sacked. But the wanton dismissal of lecturers in UEW, we've gone into each of the cases, and all of them are people who seem to be in disagreement with the ways the current management is going about things.
There are those who think UTAG came in too late in this matter. Would you agree with them?
UTAG didn't come in too late.
Would you have wished that you had maybe stepped in a little earlier so that we wouldn't get to this point?
There are so many things that happen in our universities, and sometimes UTAG strategically decides to be silent and steady matters. And the management of UEW attests that UTAG National have had series of meetings. I have personally had a number of meetings, one-on-one with a certain Vice Chancellor. Because when the President came during his investiture, the President charged the Vice Chancellor to unite the feuding factions. And I was called by the Minister of Education, Honorable Matthew Puku-Prempeh, to help the university in bringing these different groups together, which I attempted to do. And earlier on, most of these issues were pending before court. And UTAG, as a law-abiding association, wanted to respect the decisions of the court. So we have been deliberating behind the scenes. And people think that UTAG just came out to hound these university officials. What UTAG is putting out there clearly is that the Vice Chancellor, Reverend Professor Afful-Broni, needs to step down, because we need a neutral person who will come and help actualize what the president clearly articulated during his investiture. He has failed to do that. The chairman, by his very own action in, twisting the rules for his own benefit, that's conflict of interest. And therefore, we cannot trust his judgment that he's somebody who is going to really lead the council to take any serious decision.
And you want Trash to look into what you just said, the issue of conflict of interest against Prof. Apaka. Have you sent your petition already?
We are going to do that pretty soon. We are putting the documents together to make that formal application, and we are going to do same with Yoko, and we are sending same documents and application to the office of the public prosecutor. And so are we going to do with the president, because the president is the appointing authority. So UTAG is really considering all these issues, and we're going to monitor what is going to happen in the next few days, and we'll take an action that would, protect the interests of our members.
When you say Reverend Father Professor Afful-Broni should step down for a neutral person, what exactly do you mean? What are you expecting?
We are expecting him to step down, resign, and allow council to take, considered due process in bringing somebody who has, the university at heart, to bring all these factions together so that the teaching and learning can be restored. Now, our dear students are at home. Lecturers are also at home. That's not what we like to do.
For UTAG, what in your mind, or who in your mind is a neutral person?
We don't have anybody in mind.
I don't mean a person. I mean in terms of pointers you're looking
somebody who has not taken sides. Taking sides in this matter, who will come with an objective opinion, very impartial, looked at the case as it is, and set up, procedures to make sure that the system is cleansed so that the university can really look at its core mandate. As at now, I want to state and emphasize that everybody who is associated with these two groups, to a certain extent, we bias towards the other group. And UTAG, as a neutral and a credible body, is not, doing the bidding of any person or any institution. But the sole interest of the university is that we ought to clean UEW and make sure that there are credible people in place to clean up this. This thing has waged on for the past 3 years. And I think it's time we move forward to help the university be restored to its rightful place.
Would you wish that just in case Professor Afful-Broni decides to step down and there's a new Vice Chancellor, would you wish that the person who comes in is not from the UEW system at all? Sometimes it happens in, my former university, for example, a whole new professor was brought to head the place. From Australia, I hear, not even within the country's jurisdiction. Would you want something like that?
I don't think UTAG want to go ahead and make those, detailed demands. I think there are procedures in recruiting a Vice Chancellor. But thinking seriously about the welfare and future of this university, I think that the authorities ought to look at somebody, and there ought to be a search committee that will look, critically into the background of all applicants and see their own past record and credibility so that they can get somebody who will come in and clean the system up. That is what we want, because we want a university that is vibrant, and as at now, the system is broken down entirely. It needs to be fixed. The earlier we did this, the better it is for the university, for teaching and learning and research to be restored on this important university campus.
Dr. Opoku-Mensah, let me end this conversation by getting your thoughts on how politics and political figures play within our education, and because we're speaking about UEW, university space. As UTAG, I'm sure even on the highest level you see some of these things that we in the public don't even know about. The role of politicians, the role of government, not in the stated or laid down procedure, back routes, things like that. What would you like to say about that and its impact on our university education in the country?
I think it's important that we make sure that there's academic freedom. Of course, academic freedom has its own boundaries. In terms of political influence and all of that, once some of them are not, in the formal space, it's difficult to talk about it. But of course, I think that all over the world, participating in different forums of higher education and unionism, I think that all over the world, the best practice is that you allow the universities to function. And I think that we are engaging and making sure that academic freedom that will allow teaching and learning and research to exist are protected. So far as the involvement of politicians are concerned, to a large extent, of course, there are always different interest groups. And it may not only be politicians. I cannot name names, and I cannot also talk about individuals who might necessarily be interested. But nevertheless, this is the world we live in. But as union leaders, we have a responsibility of working to protect the boundaries of academic freedom.
But are you happy with the kind of influence politicians
from
various political figures, people of influence who are politicians, and their role in some of these issues that we witness?
If you can mention specifically, then I can deal with it.
You are not aware anything like that happens?
Oh, some of them, you know, have come up.
So are you happy with that?
You wish certain things do not happen, but as you may have it, things happen. But we want to move forward and make sure that together, you know, together with the political actors, we move forward and restore dignity on this important university campus.
Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Eric Opoku-Mensah is UTAG president, and we've been talking about the University of Education Winneba and how to move the school from where it is. We hear from the PRO that the school is likely to open in 2 or 3 weeks. We are following this story keenly. We'll let you know whatever happens on the ground.